How does a tiny team with less budget than a cheap indie movie and basically no marketing manage to release a game that breaks all sorts of Steam records, put AAA titles to shame, piss off a multi-billion company, and ruffle the feathers of gaming journalists of all kinds? This cannot be only explained by them taking heavy inspiration from a certain Japanese game that comes in pairs and has a popular anime series. And of course I'm talking about Yokai Watch. Yeah, I'm taking the piss, it's Pokémon. Because Pokémon clones come and go, from the aforementioned Yokai Watch, which was even called Pokémon Killer in Japan, to Nexomon or Koromon, where they didn't even hide them on, even Square's World of Final Fantasy, or games that are basically a Pokémon reskin like Monster Crown and Temtem, none of which have ruffled as many feathers as Palworld. And it seems like the fellas from Pocket Pair are going to escape unscathed, so in their own words, that would make them quite the cheeky bastards. And I say this with all the love in the world, as anything that tickles the gaming industry in favor of players is a good thing. Their story as a company is also pretty interesting, as we can read in Note and several interviews. Well, we can't because they are in Japanese, but I have a master's degree in using translators and annoying people with questions, so let me be your guide. Pocket Pair started around 2015 as a pair of dudes dropping their jobs to develop a mobile game, for which they had a prototype ready in 2 years. And so with their fresh third new member, they went to over 10 publishers, who told them it was cool, but that amateur peasants with an unknown IP weren't guaranteed to make money. Plus, the mobile market is about consumer fuckery, not about cool games. So no raid clone, no money. And their first project died, which in my opinion was a good thing. Because instead of giving up, they pulled a...
Yeah, well, I'm gonna go build my own theme park with blackjack and hookers. In fact, forget the park!
Deciding to start self-publishing on Steam without external investments. And here is where we can see the philosophy of Pocket Pair, which is shipping, and I don't mean leaving your delicate items in the competent hands of a delivery service. I mean the other kind of shipping, where Westerners are still writing questionable fanfiction about their favorite human characters, while the Japanese have transcended and will ship everything, from this dude with the horse lady to this girl with a dragon. Or in the case of Pocket Pair, they'll ship a game with another game and write the code of how their child would look like. Their first game, Over Dungeon, is a blend of Slay the Spire and Clash Royale according to the CEO himself, which they follow with Craftopia, a game that takes notes from Zelda, Rust, Dark Souls, those factory games designed to develop OCD, and Pokémon but with normal animals, where people build massive machines designed to throw cows into a pot of stew for whatever reason. Next, they dropped AI Art Imposto, the kid of Among Us with Pictionary, where AI draws for us. And they are not shy about this. On Craftopia's Steam page it clearly reads, "We have imagined what would happen when we combine our favorite video games all together." And hey, not everybody can reinvent the wheel. Some will just see what's on market and try to make the best of what already exists, which is how art has always been. But up to this point, all their games besides Art Impostor were made with assets, which made them look amateur, inconsistent, and admittedly cheap. So they decided to go for a last hurrah, Pocket Pair's Final Fantasy. And this time they were going to mix Rust with Ark, but changing dinosaurs for monsters inspired by Dragon Quest. Or that is what they say, but the Pokémon and Zelda inspiration is so strong they almost snorted at Charizard. It's kind of fun to read across several interviews how for the most part they didn't have a clue of what they were doing. From realizing that animations are hard, deciding they had no idea and contact a dude without experience that was uploading cool animations to YouTube, or discovering that art is hard and they might as well end up hiring the girl they rejected originally because they thought she'd be wasted on them. Like this, their team got around 40 new members, and their 1-year deadline ended up becoming 3. But it appears that being a hungry studio and hiring hungry amateurs did pay off. As just look at this magnificence. The amount of specific animations, care for detail, fun combat and understanding of each of the games they take inspiration from should make certain multi-billion franchises blush, all while having an early access with less issues than most AAA releases, accompanied by a decent price. None of which would have been enough if the game didn't reach us, and not having money for marketing, they chose to do the next best and cheekiest thing, making the game a big meme. Many pals are walking dad jokes, some go for the cute shares, others are questionable, like number 69, who doesn't need Rule 34 for wanting to bone you. They frontlined the game with Electric Totoro wielding a minigun, and the array of, let's call them, Pokepals would certainly create controversy. And I'm sure that most of us heard the term Pokémon with guns before the name Palworld, to which I have to say, Pokémon with guns, my ass. You spend most of the game with a stick and a bow, and when you start getting guns, each bullet is more expensive than releasing a dumb child in an antique shop. Plus, PAL weapons are mostly to be taken as a joke, like the monkey with an AK or the squirrel with an SMG. This game doesn't take itself seriously and is designed for an older audience, which I appreciate. If they were baiting controversy, well, they got it. Because Nintendo and some people without real-life problems got very offended. Nintendo, understandably so, as many pals look uncomfortably similar to Pokémon designs, sometimes reminding me of those clickless tracksuits you could see in flea markets. Not only they look similar, but the dinosaurs of Ark have been replaced by pals that have IVs and natures for those psychopaths among you that love eugenics. And instead of sleeping darts and Stockholm Syndrome, we have Pokeballs, Palspheres, not to be confused with Palballs, as we wouldn't want to hold those. And balls they had, a good pocket pair, as they copied the homework of one of the most litigious companies while residing in Japan, where if you talk about fair use you'll get an soon followed by a directed at your company. And yeah, Nintendo is pissed. You only need to see how fast they kill a Pokémon mod for the game, when there exists an equivalent mod for Ark since 2017 that hasn't bothered them, or how they are even copyright smacking fan art that in my opinion they have no claims to. There is little doubt that these have been warning shots that other Pokémon-inspired games haven't gotten. But it's nothing as dramatic as articles like "Palworld in trouble as Nintendo president confirms action will be taken," which was a lie, where they claim that the need to protect the sanctity of Pokémon is paramount to many. I don't know what were they smoking, but probably lots of it. As Pokémon's sanctity in itself, it's extremely derivative. Just look at the last gen, where the starters are basic anime cat painted green, naked Donald with a mullet instead of his beret, and red Bubble Bobble. The fellas of Pocket Pair pointing at Dragon Quest as a reference was quite deliberate, as the debate of Pokémon taking inspiration from it and other games is quite old. They even took note from Disney. Thus, Nintendo will bite your head off if you touch their mascots, but not as much with their secondary Pokémon, so as long as they stay away from creating Pikachu or Squirter, they should be kind of fine. Plus, Nintendo has little to win, mostly terrible PR if they decide to crush the little guy that dared to do what their fans were asking from them for over a decade, as the gameplay and general design of Palworld is nothing like Pokémon. In my opinion, it was a high-risk, high-reward maneuver that worked amazingly, and something for their legal teams to deal with. Besides, if the Big N has time to worry about Palworld, they should use it to ask Game Freak why their multi-billion franchise, with hundreds of professionals working on it, didn't bring Tears of the Kingdom levels of style and gameplay to the Pokémon world, but instead created one of the most tedious and challenging takes on the series that looks like an unpolished PS2 game with upscaled models. Or not, given that Sword and Violet are the second and third most sold games of the franchise.
Ridiculous. Without even trying, how did they do it?
Oh, sorry, I just started the radio by accident. And all this comes from a place of love. I've been playing Pokémon since I got a Japanese copy of Yellow in a floppy disk a week or so before Blue and Red were released in the West, but not admitting that they have become the laziest franchise requires huge amounts of copium. Still, the outrage didn't end with Nintendo. Journalists also wanted a piece of the cake, and their cake is lately made of drama, which is also the flavor of Twitter. So they started with accusations of AI use, the proof being that the CEO commented a couple tweets about Pokémons generated with AI by BuzzFeed back in 2021, which is no proof at all and conveniently ignores all the talk about their designers, the fact that Steam requires AI disclosures on games which Palworld doesn't have, and that it would be rather absurd for a company that has openly made a game like AI Art Impostor to hide it and risk their golden goose. Did they use it? Well, we don't know. Does Game Freak, Square, Ubisoft or Bethesda among others use it? Well, I don't know. If I had to bet, I would put my money on that they all do, at least for inspiration, which doesn't mean we should crucify anybody without proof. Nails and wood are expensive after all. But it gets dumber, I mean deeper, so let me put some fitting dramatic music. With articles like Palworld, the moral quandary of slave labor and sweatshops with cute animal sidekicks, where they claim that Palworld isn't Manhunt, it isn't Postal, but it does require that you divorce yourself from the implications of your actions. Or Palworld, in-game atrocities are not a crime if you don't get caught, which reads, you can be the most evil pal tamer known to man, and under that cute and fluffy exterior lies a deep, dark evil that Palworld encourages you to do. And well, that's actually a lie too. As a matter of fact, the optimal PAL base includes luxury beds, hot springs, as much rest as they want, an all-you-can-eat buffet, professional protection, and if they get a bit stressed, they can just go and take a nap or relax, which are better conditions than most humans get in real life. But sure, the game allows you to be a piece of shit if you choose, and overwork your pals into depression and illness, which is, have you seen what we actually do with cattle in real life? And yeah, sure, if someone comes shooting at you, you can throw a Pokeball, a Palball, a Pulsphere and catch them, which I find hilarious, although mostly useless, and the game will shake its head at you. Which of course also raised quite the fuss, which makes me wonder if in the future they'll watch documentaries about how in the 21st century we wrote very dramatic articles about fake pixel animal sweatshops on devices made in actual sweatshops with batteries of cobalt mined by children. But that's a rabbit hole I'd rather not get into. The scene of Palworld is dropping us in a lawless island where our goal is survival, and the player has to choose how they do it, from being a complete pacifist, a walking disaster, or anything in between, instead of dropping us in a world where everybody does the equivalent of dogfighting just for fun and fame, and monsters do all the work but pretending this is cute and happy. And hey, if Pokémon tells me that this tiny bug enjoyed the fight and just fainted after I stomped it with my 5-ton copper elephant, I'll suspend my disbelief and enjoy it, because this is not the real world. If we keep judging fiction by real-world standards, not only will ruin it, but might forget about real issues or even create a modern Inquisition. Without the drama, this is just an early access game that used questionable means to get attention and shows promise while still needing a ton of work to be considered a complete game. But since at the price of a AAA title you can get a copy for you, another for your dog, plus dinner, I'd say it's worth it as long as you like what's already there. And how they deal with it, now that they have the money, will also show if Pocket Pair is a cheeky developer that ends up delivering a complete game, or if they are just full of shit. But until that, I'd say it's worth to keep an eye on them, as their attitude of listening to what players ask from other companies and saying, okay, if you don't bring it to them, we'll do it ourselves, could produce interesting games. Be it as it may, do whatever you want with those buttons down below, like subscribing or telling me how I'm wrong about everything in the comments, and have a great day.